So, what's it like to be in midlife, managing your own career, having your
Whew.
social life, and also caring for an aging loved one while also running a family business and your own small business? How does she do it and keep herself sane? We're going to get into it today. My guest today is Miss Jeanna McKnight.
Yes, thank you, Tisha.
So, welcome to the
Thank
Midlife Makeover
you. I
movement, where we get
appreciate it.
into all things midlife. We're
Yes,
talking about things that are important to us, things like caregiving, our health,
yes,
course, empty nest, caring for aging loved ones. This is the space where we love on you and really have hard conversations and really talk about what's really going on with us. Thank you, Miss Jeanna, for joining
thank
us.
you.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Miss Jeanna.
Yes, so man, so many things that you mentioned, and sometimes when I hear it, I am like, oh my gosh, I am doing all of those things, but how? And when I tell you, it's nothing but the grace of God that has guided me through every single step of the way. And I can't necessarily say that it's been a process. I've managed it now to a place where it is manageable in my life, and I see the areas where I need to step back. So, I'm doing well. I'm doing
Good.
well. Yes.
So you and I did some work over this past year where we were really talking to our community about kind of the things that we're going through. And we're going to get into that a little bit today. But you, as a single woman,
Yes.
midlife, how do you balance your roles as a corporate professional, small business owner, caregiver for your aging father, while also maintaining an active social life? How do you do it?
Yes. When I tell you calendars on my phone has been my friend. Um, I what I found out is that I had to start managing my time and establishing boundaries with every segment of my life. That came from work, my parents, my friends, and my social life, personal relationships, romantic life, as well. I had to just start setting boundaries. There was a time in my life where I was able to, when I was younger, the calendar was just free flowing, right? And I could just do anything. Someone can call me. Yes, I'm there. Now, no, I cannot do this right now. No, I do not have the time on my calendar. No has been, oh, it has been like a breath of fresh air to be comfortable enough to actually even say it. And I think with some people, including myself, there was a period in my life where no was hard for me. Now, no is necessary.
Wow.
So,
I
yeah.
want to pause. You went from no is hard to no is necessary. What was that process like for you to kind of get to
Yeah.
the space where you're like, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I want to say burnout, and that's part of the reason why I started Graceful Living is because I've experienced it. I've experienced burnout. I've experienced putting everything and everyone like ahead of my needs. And what the result of that, I was being neglected. And I just had to really, think about it. It's like, wait a minute, you're taking care of everything and everything else. What if something were to happen to you and all those things that you're taking care of falls apart or are not able to actually be done? You have to take care of yourself as well. You're just as important. That's one of those things I had to keep saying to myself. You're just as important as everything else that you're doing. So you, schedule you.
It's interesting that you say that, and we're going to
Mm-hmm.
talk about graceful living. But I can say for you, you and I have been having conversations now for a couple years, and I can tell
Absolutely.
you that the Gina that I'm speaking to now is not the Gina that I was speaking to a couple years ago. I mean,
Yeah.
you were frazzled, you were,
Yes.
I'm not being disrespectful, but you
Yeah.
were just kind of, I could tell you were exhausted. You were
Yeah.
emotionally exhausted. And so when we talk
Mm-hmm.
about graceful living, you said that this was kind of the inspiration for that. So tell us a little bit about graceful living, what it is, and what
Yeah.
you do.
So graceful living, it's it's almost all encompassing. I have my master's in gerontology, and my experiences in healthcare as well as in real estate. And what I want women in our age group, because that's kind of like where everyone is feeling the crunch. It's like, how do I balance taking care of parents, taking care of kids, all and my career all at the same time? So and that was me. It's like, how do I do these things? So what I wanted to be able to do is share it within a business. So if you needed that person to actually talk to work through those steps in your life, then we have the counseling portion. And then of course, loving where you live. I think our home and where we lay our heads should be a place that is peaceful. It should be clean. It should encompass, a little bit of aromatherapy, all of these things just to appease the senses. It should be functional, safe. So when I think about my clients that I consult with from a real estate perspective, as well as counseling, it's how do I make my life as, how do I go about life, I should say, as gracefully as I can? Because I want to age in a beautiful space. I don't want, a whole lot of chaos. We want peace, At this age, we want peace in our lives and not a whole lot of drama or chaos. So how do we make it work? So I feel like because I have gone through it, and similar to what you said, you saw the burnout me, and now you see a more calm and peaceful because I worked through that process.
What
So
was that process like then? So,
yeah,
we talk about, hey, I was down here and now I'm up here.
yeah,
And we don't talk about what was that like in the middle of really kind of,
yes, yes. Well, you know how, they say that doctors are hard to treat because they're doctors sing on this end. Although I am a therapist, going through counseling and life coaching, I can talk to other people about it. I needed therapy myself. I needed someone, a third party, to guide me and walk me, through this place. And it was so helpful. And then actually that person looking at the things that I was actually, taking care of and managing, and just saying to me, sometimes you need someone who is outside of your world to look at your world and sort through the mess. Because when you're in the mess, it tends to be really challenging. You're almost like a hamster on a hamster wheel. What my therapist, she described it as, I was going through that functional depression. I was functioning every single day, smiling every single day, getting done. The checks on that list, it was being handled, but mentally, I was just all over the place. So I got help. And
pause.
yes,
This is important. I don't want to cut you off on this statement, but I want to lean into a couple things you said. First was therapy and how important therapy is. And I
yeah,
think sometimes as women, Black women especially,
mm-hmm.
starting to lean into therapy now. But it sounds to me like it was really instrumental in you kind of calming the chaos, number
Yeah,
one. But then you mentioned something that I hadn't heard before, and that's functional depression. It is so, it's what we do, right? It's what we do as women. So talk to me a little bit about how that showed up in your life, that functional
yeah, yeah. That functional depression is, you still showing up, you still, taking care of the things that you need to in life, like how to manage and live, but then that happiness, that joy, that peace, you big YOU is missing in the puzzle. So it created, for me, I can say, yeah, I was getting things done, but I wasn't happy with my life. You know, thinking about who I am, what I want to accomplish, what purpose that I have, what God-given talents that I have that I'm neglecting because I'm not doing what He has placed me on this earth to do. It created a depressive state for me. So when I say functional depression, some people just, you know, may isolate, stay in a home, don't want to socialize and go anywhere. Those are some of the, you know, effects of it. But you're not suicidal. You know, that's another part of depression on the extreme end of it all. I wasn't there, but I will tell you there were moments when I'm like, why am I here? Because I'm not happy, you know, and so I just had to work through that. So that's what it is, and that's how it shows up. And a lot of people, and to be honest with you, being in the mental health field, I didn't even realize or could put a label or name for that functional depression, you know? So when we actually walk through those steps of the things to do, the thing is like, I got stuck in life, you know, stuck for me. Things were happening around me, but I personally, my career, everything just was stuck. So I'm unstuck now, if that makes sense.
That's interesting, right? I think you're describing something that probably a lot of women feel, but it's difficult to name. It's like a dull ache, right? You can't really
Yeah.
put your finger on it, really. You know, it's something. It's hard
Yes.
to identify. I think that you're going to help a lot of women with that.
Yes.
How did you start to prioritize your own self-care? And what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So for me, at the end of the day, or I should say, end of the week, I make sure that I have some form of self-care activity, whatever it is. Yes, I get my hair done, the little that I had, or my nails done, and those things are nice, or massage and stuff. Those things I feel like beyond their maintenance stuff, right? So that should be happening anyway. But when it comes to self care for me, it's doing what I want to do. And it could just be going to a new restaurant. It can be going somewhere else in the city that I've never been before. It has been, you know, just reading a book, you know, for about an hour or two in that silence, being around friends and being intentional about my time that I actually spend with them. You know, I just had to incorporate that in my life. And what happened, Tisha, I will say, you know, one of my friends, she is one of those straight shooters, and she mentioned to me, and I didn't even realize it. She was like, I haven't even been to your house in a long time, you know, in forever. I was like, yeah, you were here. And then I had to think about it. And I'm like, oh man, that was a couple of years ago. You know what I mean? And this is someone who I really, you know, like care about and value our friendship. And I had to think about it like, excuse me for my little child. Oh. I had to really think about it. It's like, wait a minute, why was that? Why wasn't that happening? So I had to, you know, really look at the people who are in my life, how they show up for me, and how I want to be able to show up for them. That's one. And then, so I had to reassess, make some reassessments on some of my relationships, but then also making sure, because I look at my life, there are things that I want to do. There are things that I want to accomplish. There are things that I want to see. And every week, I kind of, it's not like I have a master list per se, but I try to incorporate something different.
Was that something you had to be very intentional about? I know because
Had
sometimes when
to.
you get into that depressive mood, you're like, I don't feel like it. What were the
Yeah.
baby steps that you kind of took to even start? Because sometimes, like when you get into that space
Yeah.
where you just don't feel like doing anything, the thought of doing everything gets overwhelming. So, what were the small steps that you took?
Mhm. Yeah. So it's more of a check in my mind. So I'll say this. I have this little, I call it my Jeannaism, where I say, people don't really change, but they'll change their behaviors, And so I wanted to, and don't get me wrong, there are moments when I don't want to do any of the stuff that I said that I want to do for myself because I'm tired, right? But then how I'm changing that behavior is being intentional and saying, Jeanna, you have done, look at everything for the week. What have you done for yourself? And if nothing on that list I have done for myself, I push myself to go do something, and it requires for me sometimes that push. And then when I get out there and I actually do it, I'm like, man, this is the best thing ever. You know, I'll tell you an example. This past weekend, a relative of mine just graduated and got her doctorate's degree. And where the ceremony was taking place was not too far from where I live. They didn't necessarily plan a dinner at a restaurant. And I was like, by the time after the graduation, you have to wait in line 45 minutes to an hour. I said, just come on over to my house. Now, for me to do that, that was huge for me because, like I said before, with my friend, I haven't invited like people over in fellowship, right, over to my home. Within an hour or two, I put together a spread at my home, and we had a great time just fellowship, a random, unplanned, moment of being around friends and family in my home. That felt good. And so as well as doing something for my cousin, I was doing something for me, something that I enjoyed. So,
Nice. That's nice.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you did that. You
Yeah.
started taking care of yourself, but you also, are a caregiver part-time for your dad. So
Yes. Yes.
how do you balance that? What does that look like now? Before it was, I think one of the conversations we had very early on when we were talking is, girl, you got to set some boundaries. And, I can tell it, and
Yeah.
I didn't know a whole lot about your situation. And it's just one of those flip things that people say to
Yeah.
you, but then you're like, yeah, but how do I do that? So what
Yeah.
was that journey like for you? Tell me what this situation is like for you, period.
Yeah, the caregiver situation, the hardest part of it all is, or I should say was, because we have some amazing caregivers now, amazing, is finding the right caregiver for where my dad was. Now, it's a double-edged sword, I want to say, because for me, being a caregiver, trained as a caregiver, you know, I might have been a little extra with the expectations, but although I may think it comes naturally, it doesn't come naturally to, everyone who comes into your home. So the challenge, we overcame that, and we have some amazing, amazing, amazing caregivers. So that was priority number one. I had to find some qualified people so that when I step away and when I'm not present at the home, I can function on what I need to take care of for my business, for my job, and for everything else without worrying about my family. Okay. So I needed to take care of that first in
Mm-hmm.
order for me to do everything else.
So hold
Before
on
I,
before you go.
mhm,
So
yeah,
did you feel like it was like a triage situation? It was like, what is causing me the most pain? And then I'll just kind of go down the list.
correct.
Oh,
Correct.
wow. Okay.
Because that part alone, this is my dad, it's my mom, it's my family, it's my heart, they're my loves. And I wouldn't, and I will say that's kind of like what kept me stuck, because I want to make sure they're good. I want to make sure that they're being taken care of. I want to be in a place where I can remove myself. I needed a me, in a sense, or a spinoff of me in the home, so that I wouldn't have to worry about them, because it does take up, that headspace. So I had to focus on that. And I knew it was going to take me a certain amount of time to be able to do it. And I just stayed strong, and diligent with doing that. And once I got it, I can't even begin to tell you how many doors are beginning to open up, and how I'm able to show up, in other areas.
That reminds me of the book, The One Thing, right? So what is the
Mhm.
one thing that I can do that would make all other things,
Yes.
less or unnecessary? And so,
Yeah.
sometimes when we find ourselves in a situation and we are overwhelmed and it's like you're swirling in this chaos, you're like, I
Yeah.
don't even know where to start.
Right.
What is the thing that's giving me the most pain? Or what is the thing that if I solved it first,
Yeah.
it will eliminate some headspace for me to do other things? So wow, that's pretty big.
Hmm. Well, yeah, and something else that I've noticed, I had noticed over the years, is that I almost got to the point where caregiving became an excuse, you know, like, oh, I can't do this because I got to do this before, my mom and dad. I can't do this because X, Y, Z. I have to be, and then it's like, do I have to be there, or do I want to be there? Like, that question for myself, I had to keep checking myself. And again, like I say, it's a behavioral change in me. I still want to be present, right? I had to let go of that piece of control, which I know so many women in our age group can actually relate to, is that control factor of knowing every single thing. But just getting to that place where they're going to be okay.
I
You know,
want to pause. I want to get into
yeah.
this because you said something I think is important. And you said, do I really? Or is that just my excuse? And so sometimes
Hmm.
I hadn't thought about this until just now. Sometimes we'll
Yeah.
use what's going on around us as
Yeah.
our excuse for choosing not to live or choosing to
Yes.
care for ourselves or choosing not to
Hmm.
invest. And I think when we get into that,
Yeah.
it's where anger and resentment, and it's really that whole losing yourself. That's where that whole I've
Yeah.
lost myself concept comes in, is
Yeah.
slowly. And is it, have you lost yourself or have you given yourself away slowly by not,
Ooh.
we gonna pause right there. You give
Ooh.
yourself away? Like, have you
Yeah.
like deferred to other people? One of the things
Mhm.
that I heard in a study with Leslie Vernick is she would talk about how we're talking about other people and okay, and that's their problem. But what is
Correct.
your problem with
Yes.
their? And so what I heard you say is like, yeah, my dad needed caregiving, but what was my problem with my dad needing caregiving? And it was boundaries. I
Yes.
hadn't prioritized, getting the right caregivers
Hmm.
there. And because I hadn't, I was functionally depressed, right?
Yeah.
And because I hadn't decided that I was important, I was allowing all these other things to take priority, which was having a negative impact on me. And I don't think that
Correct.
really ever, sometimes when you're in the thick of it, you don't take a moment. You don't give yourself a moment to just
You don't
pause
have it.
and think
Yeah.
about what's really going on. And for you to say, hey, I went to therapy and it took this outside person to look
Yeah.
at the chaos in my life to kind of, I'm raising my hand and they're like, let me
Yeah.
grab your hand out so we can look at it from the outside looking in and figure out
Absolutely.
what else we can do. Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
that was a lot to unpack,
It was
right?
a lot to unpack. It was a lot
Wow.
to unpack. And, you know, coupled with, we get in this stage, we have the mommy daughter issue. Okay.
Well, you want to go there, we might as well
Yeah.
go there. Let's talk about that
Yeah, the mom.
because, you have a father who is ailing.
Yes.
You have a mother-daughter dynamic. You do have a mother who does need some support, but there's also maybe a challenge going into it. So let's talk through that. How did you work through?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had to, again, really see the challenges that we were having for what it is. My my mom will always see me as her daughter, as a child, not as a professional per se. I am Jeanna, her daughter, and Jeanna needs to listen to me because I am the parent. I should know better. I had to really look at her background, how she was raised, the experiences that she's had over her life, and how that over her life and how it actually impacted me as an individual. Once I did that, I was able to see her differently. I know my mom loves me, right? I know she wants the best for me. I know that, but I also realize some of the things that she wanted or requested or how she requested, it was because of her experiences in her past. So once I've learned that, my approach and my conversations with her changed.
Interesting.
I had to get to a point like, do I want to constantly try to beat down my point to this point? Because I know best, or do I just go ahead and allow her to be in charge in her own way to a certain extent? You know what I mean? And and just kind of fall back and just let things, be. Like I had to just really get to that point. And when I tell you, when I got here, our whole relationship changed. Our whole entire relationship changed for the better. You know, for the better. We're not going at it, all the time. I see her for who she is, and really, I think now our relationship is better than it has been in a very long time. I think she would be in agreement with it as well. Does she still
So,
listen to everything that I say? No, but but that's okay, you know.
so let's unpack this a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So when you are in a situation where you can't change the other person, you can't change the situation, the only person you can work on is yourself. And it sounds like
Correct.
that's where you went to work.
Yeah.
That's important. And then also being empathetic, really to understand, hey, this comes from, who she is and how she was raised. It's not for me to change, but bigger than that, and setting the boundary that you're my mother, I'm Jeanna. We're two separate people. We're not one individual.
Yeah.
We're here. And yes, we do have this family challenge, but we
Hmm.
don't have to challenge each other at the same place. And it sounds like there was a shift that happened from you going at it with each other to let's see where we both have something to attack this other problem, which is the
Correct.
caregiving of my dad.
Yes.
Huge. That is
It's
huge.
huge.
That's
It
huge.
really was. Hmm.
And I can see that peace that has come over because you're not feeling like you're always going to war or you're always needing to advocate for yourself or you're always
Correct.
to be in a fight all the time.
Yeah. Right.
And again, setting those boundaries and saying, this is what I can do, this is what my capacity is, and this is where some help has to be. And this is not my primary concern. I'm in it with you,
Mm-mm.
but you can't dump it on me. So let's figure out how we're going to work through it.
That's it.
Those are boundaries. Like those are big, like I'm here for you, but I'm not going to do it for you. I'll do
Yeah.
it with you, but
Exactly.
not.
Exactly. Support, support, support. Not the person, the soul person. Yeah.
Well, and I think that we have that in families too, whether you're the only girl, the oldest girl,
Hmm.
as women oftentimes, because you have, another sibling, But as women, oftentimes, especially the oldest girl,
Yes.
call
Yes.
it what it is, that we get leaned on more than other people. And sometimes people don't see the humanity in us or
Correct.
what their demands are really doing for us until we break down. And everybody's looking like, well, what happened? What
Exactly. Exactly.
and you were, I mean,
You
you were
know, and you're not even the oldest girl. There's everything. Every family has that responsible one, right? And
just
it's like, wait a minute now. So sister, brother over here can get away with everything, not show up, not be present, not do anything, but I have to be the one that you lean on, seriously. So when and that's something that I also used to do. It's like, oh, okay, so what about my brother? So I started, um I, well, in a medical term, we'll say redirecting.
okay.
Redirecting and delegating.
Okay.
Like I did not have to do every single thing. There's another able body within this family who wants to help, but we have to give some direction. And once we started doing that, I started pushing back, then that person came on board. So I think at the end of the day, when people think about caregiving, there are people within our circle who is willing to help. How that help looks like, what that help looks like is different for everyone. It can just be picking up some groceries. It can just be, being present for that doctor's appointment that you can't be present because you're on the other side of town. It can be small little things, but let me tell you, those small things add up at the end of the day when you think about your time.
So
Time you don't get back.
I want to pause here because there was a point in your life where you felt like if I don't do it, it ain't gonna get done, it ain't gonna get done right. And so that
Yeah.
becomes a double-edged sword in that
Yeah.
one, it's a thought process that feels like the world is going to stop if you don't do it, number one. But then there might be other people, like you said, who are willing to help, but
Yeah.
they don't want to because they don't do it as good as you do it. And they may feel
Yeah.
like they're going to get the wrath if they don't do it
Hmm.
exactly right. So it's one of those things where, getting it done is better than it being done perfectly.
Correct.
And, you
Had to
know,
let it go. Okay, so it's not done in the way that I wanted to be done. Okay,
so
and
I'm assuming, I have to assume, because, when we call it the dance, right? The destructive dance in the family. And when
yeah,
you change your steps, then the family members start changing their steps. What was the pushback? Or did you get
that's
any
that
pushback
that's
when you
that
decided?
graceful. That's that grace
Yeah, the
part
graceful
of that
living.
graceful living.
Yeah, what was that like? What was that like?
Well, they just had to get used to me now. You know, um, I'm sure it all was a shock initially, and tough conversations had to be made. But at the end of the day, when you have those conversations and you letting them know how it's actually making you feel and how you can actually show up because your family loves and want to support you, they'll start to make some adjustments. And I'll say that I'm saying your family because everyone's family is different. Majority of the case, you would think that they would want to do some things to actually support you. But you have to share and talk about it and be okay with whatever that result is going to be on the other end of it. At the end of the day, you have to be able to be strong enough to communicate how it's affecting you.
I love
I
it.
had to be strong enough to be able to communicate how it was affecting me.
So you went in there. So this is important. So you didn't go in there accusing them, you don't do this and you don't do that, and I have to do all this and I have to do all that.
No.
Your attitude and probably therapy helped you was, let me just talk to you from my humanity, not just
Yeah.
you expect these certain things. I know that, and I need our audience to be very clear.
Yeah.
You may be in a situation with your family or your other members where you are having that conversation and they're not listening.
Yeah.
And in this case, Jeanna's family was able to respond in a way. you've got to get to a point where you figure out, well, you're not listening, so let me show you. I'll just back out a little bit, or I'll
Correct.
just say no, or it'll be 3 times you call before I pick up the phone instead of picking it up every single time. It's like whatever little thing
Yes.
you need to do to be able to start to pull yourself back, start
Yes.
doing that, and be clear that all the family members are not going to like when things start to shift and change. But
Mm-mm.
your health, your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health have to be your priority because, like you said, if something happens to you, who's
Yes.
going to take care of all of these things? And the greatest gift that you can give to people is the gift of allowing them to do things that they can do for themselves, even if they
Absolutely.
don't want to.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you said that, because when we take on so much responsibilities that someone else can actually do for themselves, we are literally enabling them, just like an alcoholic or drug addict or whatever. Stop enabling folks. There are so many things that I was taking care of that my mom could do, that my brother could do, that some other professional could do. I didn't have to do it all. So stop enabling folks. Delegate. And if they need training, if you have to show them, it's better to show them how to do things that you were doing than to keep doing it yourself. And
Yeah,
that's what happened. It just started piling up.
I
As we
love.
get older, I mean, look, we already have in this spring, we got perimenopause, we got menopause, we got hormones, like all over the place, moves. And you want me to do all of your things plus mine? Not to
Like,
mention, I'm single, I have my own household. I'm supposed to manage another household, everything. Come on now.
stop.
That's not, we can't do
So what our audience doesn't know that you and I met on an international trip. I
that.
can't even remember where were we
I
going?
can't
Where did
believe
we
it's been
meet?
so many years.
I know we went on so many. It might have been,
Yes.
I don't know. We went on a couple. We were in a travel group,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and that's how we met. And
Yeah.
we went on several different trips together. And so my question is, as a world traveler, how has your global perspective, had an impact on your life, caregiving, how you
Mm-hmm.
care for yourself? I mean, because I think that once you have lifted off, you've stamped that passport and you see life differently, it
Yeah.
changes your perspective. So how
It
has it
does.
changed yours?
Traveling for me, because my schedule here can be so busy, it's my escape. It's my escape where I don't have to think or make a decision about anyone. No one is asking me anything. I just love those trips when it's planned all the way down to the details, right? But what I've also seen in other countries, and how they care for each other, it's different. It's different here. I think it's more, I mean, it's more communal, where it's not just one person. It's just not just leaning on that one person. It's a whole community. And here in the States, I think we've gotten away from that. I would love to be able to see it more. But I think with the dynamics of everyone working, men, women, shoot, even sometimes the teenagers, like everyone is just super, super busy, or spread out in different states, not living all together. I think it does make things a whole lot more challenging. But traveling gives me an opportunity to just, whew, just kind of like breathe and relax. I look forward to it.
I mean, that's one reason why I like solo travel, especially like when I'm meeting a group
Yeah.
and I know it's planned out and all I got to do is show up and think about me.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
You
love.
show up, you think about yourself, and I don't know if you have the same experience, but it's like, I don't know, you just see things. Remember I was talking about the whole functional depression, you on the hamsters are on the Ferris wheel and you're just going, going, going. So when I travel, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize the sun sets like that. And that is just so beautiful to me, you know? Or you hearing more things that's just around you. It's like all of your senses is just being tapped into when you travel, because you're able to take in and be present
Yeah. You're
in the
able
moment.
to
So,
recalibrate with yourself, honestly. You really just
yeah,
get a moment to just be without people's
yeah,
pulling, like they're pulling on you all the
yeah,
time. Yeah, I see
yeah.
what you
I'm
said.
like, no one is asking me, how do I, what do I, when do I don't know. You
I
tell me.
love it. I love it. So looking ahead, right? What are your hopes and your aspirations for your personal life and your relationships in the future?
Oh, personal life. I can tell you all about professional now. But
Okay.
no, personally, I would love to be in a place where I'm able to share my life to how I described it when I go travel internationally, sharing my life and being present with someone who accepts and loves me for me and all my craziness that I have that someone may consider as crazy. I say it's just being me, but someone who can just really accept me for who I am and just love on me just as much as I love on everyone else. So,
Mm, love that. I love that.
yeah.
So, what do you think, or what are you hoping that our listeners will take away from our conversation today about aging
Mhm.
gracefully, caring for others, and providing compassion both to the people that you care for and for yourself?
Yeah, I would like for everyone to know that we can do this. It is possible. Living in grace, in love, in passion, and purpose is possible while you're taking care of someone and having a career and doing all these other things that you have in your life and taking care of your family. It's possible. You just have to establish some time management, a little bit of boundaries, and a dash of self-care. You got a very nice cake.
I love it. I love it. And
Yes.
lastly,
Yeah.
how can our listeners connect with you and learn more about graceful
Uh,
living and the services you offer?
yes, they can always visit my website, which is Graceful Livings with an S on the end.com. And all the contact information is there. So gracefullivings.com.
Well, Miss Jeanna, thank you
Yeah.
so much for
Thank
taking
you for
time.
having
Oh my goodness, it was so
me.
insightful in sharing your journey from being, functionally depressed to really looking like a ray of sunshine now. I mean, it's been
Yeah.
completely different to see you over the last couple of years, and I'm just
Thank you.
excited to see you on the other side of the journey. So we here
Thank
at the
you.
Midlife Makeover Movement are happy to have had the opportunity to share with you. I am Tisha Mitchell, your midlife makeover maven, and we will talk to you again soon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.